Test, 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 1, 2. Nothing. Okay, sure. Test, test, test. All right. Yeah.
What's that? I saw that. I think it was actually beginning from the article had that.
Hello, okay. Green is on, okay.
Go ahead and call the meeting to order. I should have put that in. No, I did, sorry. Good evening, everybody. My name is Susan. I'm going to call the Monroe County Women's Commission meeting to order. The commission serves as an advisory role to assist residents, businesses, and the government of Monroe County in addressing issues of gender equity in all aspects of society. The mission is to advance the status of women in all areas of county life and to champion women's contributions to local culture and society. Do everyone seen the agenda? I think we have everything there. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Or
Motion to approve.
do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. You're green. Did you say aye?
No, because I had
You want to make an amendment?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, are we gonna, never mind. No, I don't. I just saw new business. So
Okay, perfect. Agenda passes. Everyone has the minutes. Commissioner Williamson printed them all out for us and we sent them out earlier. So has everybody had a chance to go over? And if so, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Minutes approved. Awesome. Welcome. There's one is the minutes and the agenda. Thank you. Welcome. So I did make a change on the commissioner updates and just included Maria and I as giving updates, and then everybody else, because of subcommittees and whatnot, will have things there. And if anybody ever has other things to say, then let me know when I make the agenda so we can get it added. It has been a really, really long time since we've met, or at least it feels like that. I wanted to follow up and say I did go to the International Women's Day event held by the Indiana Commission for Women. It was lovely. I met a lot of people, which was wonderful. I wish I needed to make business cards for myself, because when I got there, I realized that that's what I needed, because everyone's like, do you have contact information? I was like, no, I don't. But that's where I met our speaker tonight. That's going to be joining us via Zoom in a little bit. And then, a whole bunch of other people, met other people that are really interested in other women on the state commission and et cetera, et cetera. So overall, it was really interesting, and I got to meet a lot of people. So, and I got to meet Jordan, which was wonderful because I'd never met her in person. The ACLU, we finally met. I met with Caitlin the other day. I think she was, I took my notes, not really. She just wanted to introduce herself. She was just trying to get to know everybody on all the women's related boards and commissions in the state or whatever, just to let them know that the ACLU is here for us. She wanted to make sure what we could provide, what information she could provide for us. She's going to send me legislative updates so we could talk about those if we need to. And she would, be happy to come talk for, share with us at some point or whatever. So it was great. The other person that I was supposed to meet with,
Hold on, can you tell me Caitlin's?
Caitlin Teague.
Teague and her title?
I don't know.
Okay.
Not off the top of my head. The other person that was supposed to Zoom with us had a meeting with the White House, so she didn't make it, which sounds nice. Did you have a question? Oh, you looked like you had a question. Okay. But just so we know, that's another option for support and stuff. Also, that I found out recently about the Sojourn House, which I hadn't. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's going to be based in Steinsville. They are doing, because it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which we'll talk about in a second. So I was just, and I knew we didn't have a speaker, so I was just kind of looking for things that might be interesting to have topical to come speak. Then I know Middleway gets tapped a lot and they're going to come speak it now. So I thought we'd do something else. So I reached out to them to see if they could. They're having their gala tomorrow. So they were like, we're kind of busy, but anytime we will happily come and would love to tell about what they do. But they do human trafficking and sexual assault stuff. So it's kind of like a Middleway house, but out in the county. I don't know what they do. They're new.
It's actually primarily for human trafficking.
It is
And
primarily human
supposedly they have a list of people that are ready to move into that program when they are able to open. So hopefully this fundraiser coming up tomorrow will help them do that.
Great.
Do we have
Um,
details on their fundraiser?
What?
Do we have any details on their fundraiser? Where, when, how?
It's tomorrow at Sherwood Oaks Church at 6:00. Also, I put in the minutes, I'm not going to read it all, stuff about Sexual Assault Awareness Month and statistics about that. It was really interesting. This is actually from the organization that I don't know, supports SAM or however we want to call it, but it was really interesting if you read the statistics, which that way you can copy and paste it in the minutes, I guess. That it is not just a women's issue, it's a racial issue, which is what they talk about in here too. Vacancies, we still have one. What else I was gonna say? Oh, I guess I can say that to later. We still have a vacancy. I talked to Commissioner Thomas today to see where we're on that. I've also been recruiting someone else for the seat in case who is would provide a different age range than the rest of us. So I would be interested in her too. I feel like that's a lot, but I've been busy. So. Is that it? Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, the luncheon, Middleway House's luncheon is on the agenda. I'm not sure why. But we did, so I'm the development director for Middleway House, if we didn't know that. And we did have our annual spring luncheon, and I do thank Commissioner Williamson and Commissioner Hingle for attending and representing Monroe County Women's Commission. And now I split you guys up. I also wanted just to remind everyone that the city elections are happening right now, and the primary is on the 2nd of May, but early voting is open. And even if you're in the county, you can, definitely talk to people about who you like for mayor and the city council and such. Also remember, because a 70-some-year-old person did not know this. So remember, even if you do not identify as a Democrat, you can still vote. People don't know that. I feel like, yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to be registered with one party to vote for that party in a primary? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, is that what?
I'm pretty sure that's correct. In the state of Indiana, you don't have to be registered with a party to vote in
Yeah.
the primary.
Okay, so good, spread it, because I mean, Eric Spoonmore, the president of the chamber, has been saying that at the events. And I've been telling people as much as possible, and I know some of well, that's not true. The candidates can't really say it, but yeah. So encourage everyone in the city to vote. And just use all the resources on the internets to find out about the candidates.
I think my favorite is the League of Women Voters. I'm a big fan of Vote 411. huge fan of Vote 411, but vote411.org. It's run by the League of Women Voters. They have amazing stuff. On to old business or ongoing business, old/ongoing is what I wrote. I know we have, I don't know if I missed some, I was kind of absent for quite a couple weeks, but I know you were at yesterday's meeting. Were you there for us or were you just there?
I was, that was my day to listen in. So I was listening in for that day and I saw that you were doing the public comment. So I was like, there's more than one of us there. So that's great. Yeah.
It was, I'll report on that real fast. So I did finally Zoom in as I texted everybody to let you guys know. I was so excited. I was so nervous and excited to give public comment because again, you know, I wanted people, well, mostly because I thought about the speaker today and how great it would be to be able to promote that. But, you know, no one knows what we're doing. So it was really nice. So I just reported out what we were doing, that Annie Aiken came last month and that Beth is coming today. And I don't remember what else I said, but I loved that they, when I was done giving my comment, that they were really excited that Penny was like, oh, you guys are, you know, bringing it back to life, which was really awesome. So that's my report on them. Does anybody else that's attended a county commissioners meeting have anything that they would like to report?
And this, I think, is going to potentially connect up with CJRC reporting. But I was only at the commissioners meeting yesterday for the first part of the meeting, and then they came back for a working session later, and I wasn't able to be part of that. And there's been reporting since then. I'm looking at an Indiana Public Media story that that they decided yesterday apparently to stop holding the CJRC meetings. So I'm not totally, I'm not totally clear exactly. There's some disagreement, I think, on what is going on and why that's happening, but they're saying, I think that they want to do, the commissioners want to gather more information about court processes before continuing discussions within the committee. So they're stopping the committee meetings for now and doing something and then potentially calling the committee back.
More clarification on court.
Court processes is what it says in this news article. So I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
When you kind of talk louder, because it's a fan on this side, the only way I know what you're saying is I got to read the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can't understand what y'all saying.
Okay. So, yeah, so the commissioners meeting yesterday, I think this was part of what happened at the working session yesterday, is the commissioners decided to stop the CJRC meetings, the Community Justice Resource Committee meetings for now. And this news article from Indiana Public Media saying that they're wanting to gather more information about court processes before continuing discussions within the committee. So I'm not exactly sure. There's a lot more here. And I think there's maybe some disagreements about what needs to happen or what the commissioners are trying to find out. But apparently they're stopping the committee for now and potentially will call the committee back later, but I don't know. So that's the CJRC update in the very end of it, I guess. So there was a meeting on Monday that I was not able to go to, but Maria, you were able to be at the CJRC meeting on Monday.
Actually, I was not able to be there, but I did pull a write-up about it. And basically the meeting was about the developer that the commissioners chose. DLZ was there to give their report or whatnot, what they were, their plans. However, there's a lot of controversy over this because the RFP that went out, one, is not public, and two, the committee was not able to see the other respondents to the RFP. So it was unclear on why DLZ specifically was chosen. There's some questions about, transparency of budget and things like that. So, and it said that CJRC members remain frustrated by the lack of progress by the committee, that therefore probably that's why that's not going to have the committee anymore. And just of note, there were no city representatives appointed to that committee anyway, so it was very county heavy. So we'll have to see what goes on after that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is something that, as the Women's Commission, is something we can potentially bring back and discuss ourselves to ask the county commissioners to move on getting the CJRC back in action as soon as possible. That if that's, I don't know. Not necessarily an action at this meeting because it's not on the agenda for anything, but just seeing what happens in maybe a future meeting is something we talk about.
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
And my
Yeah.
only thought is because I'm that particular format did not work. And so do we want it to be, is it our recommendation that it come back as it was or come back differently? Or did they retract, stop it because they are going to reformat it? So I think.
Yeah,
we
there's
just
a lot
have
of
to see, but-
unknowns right now.
But
Yeah.
it's a hot mess.
Yeah.
For the record.
Does anybody else have any notes that they'd like to comment about the attending a commissioners meeting? Has anyone attended a county council meeting? I was going to, and I don't know, and I really wanted to go because I wanted to report out to them as well, but they only meet once a month really, and
I have tried I signed up for some meetings, but they ended up being working sessions. And so I kind of get lost in the working sessions for the county council. There's a lot of like monetary approval, budget stuff. And so I don't know if I'm going to the right meetings.
well, they have one meeting and then they have one working session meeting. I think their working session meeting is late in the month and the real one, I don't know. The other one is in the middle of the month.
And the original sign up genius that I sent that we were all going to sign up was incorrect. The dates were incorrect. They were of the working sessions. So you probably have those on your calendar, and then Commissioner Hingle, and I think you as well, let me know, like, these aren't the right. And so then I sent out a new one and I didn't send out a new one, but I changed the dates in the sign up genius. So now that it's all correct. Yeah. So it's probably not right on your calendar. If you're just, go check that sign up.
Can you send that link back out?
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, as well as the one for
Please.
sign up meeting. Says I can't find that one.
I'll send all my sign up geniuses back around.
You're the best.
They
For the
are
record.
paying. I'll do it again.
BCSW stands for Bloomington Commission for the Status of Women, as some of us didn't know. Maria, so I'm just kidding. The last meeting was during something that I was tabling for, the Democratic Party. Anyway, for one of their whatever. And so I was kind of watching it on my phone, but I know Nikki attended and I wanted to see if Commissioner Williamson would like to share what she learned from them.
I sure do. So I don't know. I was a little bit lost in the weeds because I was at work trying to tune in as well. So I couldn't give it my full attention. But and I didn't really know what they were talking about. But what I did come away with was this. They are going to do something this summer. And they wondered because they saw my name and I had changed my Zoom name to Monroe County Women Commissioner. Wondered if Commissioner Williamson thought that we might want to partner with them to do some kind of event over the summer. And I said, yes, please. So I spoke for us and said, I'm sure we would be interested in doing something this summer.
So one of the things,
That was my takeaway.
one of the parts that I got from that was what did we go to? The Women's History, where were you at too? The Women's History Luncheon? Yes, yes. So I met a lot of people during that luncheon. I went up and introduced myself to all the people that I could find on the Status of Women Commission. And was telling them about how excited I was because we were moving our meetings back off their meeting so we could actually come to their meeting. So I know they kind of addressed that in their meeting too, was because they're looking into moving their date. And I was like, not the third Thursday. Please don't move it to the.
And
So
they
they were-
asked for clarification on that. So they're all up to date on that. Because
Yeah.
I spoke about it.
Okay, goody. Do we have a sign up genius for that?
No, I was originally
Always gonna
like
go?
last year was like Nichelle asked for a liaison and it was me.
Oh,
Originally, but I mean, I am happy. I mean, I would like to always probably go and I'll probably would like to start going in person with them. But I'm happy to,
it's up to you, whatever you want to do.
I'm happy to do a sign up genius, but I will probably always go. So.
Please and thank you.
There will be sign up geniuses.
For everybody.
Keep them all and bookmark them.
Thank you. Is just send one out for cleaning my house. I think, and again, I think one of my, especially as we continue to build a relationship with the Status of Women, I have very strong feelings about figuring out a way to co-chair their history luncheon. Or like co-sponsor or co-produce or whatever their luncheon. I mean, I don't know if they would be interested in having us be a partner with that, but it was something that, because we don't do anything like that. And, who knows if we even have money, but maybe there's some way that we could be a part of that luncheon. Thoughts?
I think that's great. If it's something you want to bring up to them at their next meeting, if they're interested. I mean, they may not be looking for partnerships in that.
Well, yeah.
But I mean, it seems like a good fit if they were open to it.
Yeah. And I don't know when our budget is, but we would have to go to we'd have to develop
Right.
something and
We'd
go to
have to do a
council.
little legwork. I also wanted to share, they had a really interesting idea that I did comment on as they also are trying to elevate their profile a bit, which I don't want to steal their idea, but I just thought it might help us think about ideas of how to elevate our profile since that's on our to-do list as well. And that was, they were talking about printing out either photographs or like a timeline in kind of board form and then taking them when they go on events and stuff like that, where you can kind of see the timeline of their commission through the years and like what they've done through the years. I thought that was brilliant. And so I thought maybe that might just spur some creativity in us to think about how we might have some kind of visual representation or something that's mobile that we can, when we go to events.
Can we first start with a name tag?
Yeah. that's what I was-
Still waiting on that name tag, Susan.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, the name tags, sorry. Ooh. Yeah, I'm loud. So I was gonna bring up the name tags. Did we find out if we can just make our own name tags or? I probably didn't remind you. I mean,
I know,
I've been
that's
out of the
bad,
country
sorry.
for a while, so it's okay. We can work on it.
Okay.
And then we can print them, like I can get them laser cut and we can get them nice for us. But I was on that too. Remember in our working group, or I want to call it the right thing, when we're brainstorm our work session, we're talking about that trifold board. Well, we had saw the trifold board that they done in the past. That's maybe something we can do and we can put it on a plotter, like we can print it out and make it all nice. So that's something we can have on one of those flaps is like the timeline of the commission. So we can work on that too.
Yeah, I do definitely think, well, we can talk about that. I'll finish this one. Okay, that's moving. I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah.
So you're gonna find out about the name tag?
Yes, I wrote myself a note again.
Okay, so we'll
Sorry.
start with name tags and then we'll go with us, a trifold board. Start creating, and I can sketch something out in the next 2 weeks, though, after school is out.
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
what we need to do is just ask the commissioner, like, ask the commissioners for funds
Yes.
to make name badges
Mm-hmm.
and to get whatever we need,
Yeah.
business cards.
Mhm.
I should, Angie, maybe ask Angie or Dina. Okay,
Like, how can we get on the agenda? Because that's what they always go over the budgetary things in their meetings.
well, next week you guys could bring it up in person too. To.
Yeah,
Angie.
but I mean, just to go through, oh, sure, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we have
Yeah.
the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
Um,
that's a segue.
So let's segue into Girls Coding Camp Subcommittee. So finally I reached out to Molly and Angie about MOUs, et cetera, et cetera. And we set up a meeting for April 25th at 11. You guys are coming here. You two are for sure confirmed. Julie possibly.
Yeah, this is going to be in person. That's okay. Yeah, I don't know that I'm scheduled to work, so I don't know that I'll be able to make it at 11 on Tuesday. So
But I was open to both. Molly just suggested wanted it in person, so
I
yeah,
think it'll be better to be in person.
yeah.
probably.
And we can,
If
We can zoom you in, I'm sure.
that's,
If you can zoom me
That's
in,
what I was
I
gonna
can try doing that. I've got a meeting that's scheduled, but I'm hoping potentially
Oh.
that it will be canceled. So if I can have a
Okay.
canceled meeting, then I can zoom in and potentially, depending on how the
FaceTime
morning
you
goes, I
or
can maybe
something.
get in here, but it's, yeah, I'm kind of iffy. So we'll
Okay,
see.
okay.
and if not, we can take minutes. You'll still be included in the subcommittee.
Okay,
We won't exclude you.
Absolutely.
thank you.
This meeting, though, it's to talk about the MOU for
Yes.
Girls Coding Camp, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
So-
actually to talk about the whole project
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
they
'cause
weren't
they
aware of
weren't-
it. So
Oh.
because we first need to get it approved as a project by the
Yes.
commissioners.
Okay.
And so then we can move into MOUs because if they don't approve the project, then we don't, so we need to talk about, I guess, the history as much as
Mhm.
we know of that camp,
Mhm.
how it helps, the community and just, set out our plans. So I'm wondering, well, that's.
I have the,
25th.
what'd you say?
I was gonna say, I'm wondering if we want to get together before that, but that's Tuesday.
Yeah. So, yeah, or maybe we can hop on a Zoom and chat like Friday or in
Um,
between my dance competition, Saturday or Sunday. I have
That's
time.
the same.
I'm not dancing. I'm watching as a mom.
okay, I needed that clarification, because if not, I was gonna be. I
That was
gonna
gonna
say,
get on
"Where
the
you gonna
schedule."
be at?"
Yeah.
'Cause I'm gonna be there.
I was like, yeah.
Sorry, I need a time. You guys keep talking.
I can do any time in the morning on Friday, morning on Friday or. Right,
Mhm.
or
I'm probably,
anybody know what the art of living is from 1 to 5 tomorrow?
it sounds important.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, I heard of it.
Mhm.
Oh, that's Friday. Oh, no, that's Monday. That's Matthew McConaughey's thing. Sorry, that's on Monday. So I'm not available Monday at all.
Yeah, I'm not available on Monday.
So tomorrow, do you have time a little bit tomorrow?
Yeah, I can have some time tomorrow. It should work.
Because tomorrow I can make some time in the morning. What time, when you say in the morning, what time works for you?
I get into the office by 8:30.
Yeah. Because I mean, if we can make it the first thing, that'd be
Yeah.
good for me.
Do you want
time are
to,
you
do you want
gonna-
to try? I can be on a Zoom at 8:30.
8:30.
Is
9.
that nice?
No, 8:30 is fine.
Why'd you breathe like that?
I just was, let me live.
You were just.
I was just trying to process it. I got late night tonight. So yeah, 8:30, I'll make it work. We'll hop on a Zoom. Perfect.
Let's do 9.
8:30 is fine. Let's do
Cool.
8:30, because if we could do 8:30 to 9:30, I can have my time in
That's
between
better.
for my
Okay.
class.
Okay.
I teach 9 to 11:30, but I just need that time afterwards. Early is fine.
I need to confirm our Zoom link because she can't get in,
Who can't?
our speaker.
Oh,
Who's on the Zoom now? Is someone on there?
I sent her the minutes
or just tell
or the
her,
agenda.
just tell her to go to the website.
It's not on the website. Our agenda or the Zoom link.
Is it on the agenda and the agenda's on the website?
Where?
On the Monroe County,
Under what?
Will you? I didn't see it because I looked there first.
Okay. So we're set for Friday at 8:30.
yes, tomorrow, 8:30.
I'm trying to zoom in myself. Invalid meeting ID. I know. I was seeing if Nikki could find it on the website. Do you have the Zoom link up there for this meeting? The one I have is incorrect. And I just copied it and pasted it from our last meeting. No wonder no one can find us. Yeah, I think so. Oops. I'm trying another one from a different month. Neither is the one from January. Do you guys have the Zoom link? It does it end in 09? Yeah, it does. Oh, not meeting ID. I'm sorry, the URL. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna write it down. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. It's a little bit long, but if you have an email, I could send it to.
Susan. See, that's weird. What do I have?
If you have an email, you can put that on. I can just send it to you real fast.
That would be amazing. Sorry.
No worries.
I can't type.
Okay. Let me know if you get it.
There we go. Thanks, Corey.
Yep, that should hopefully work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully Beth will be here in a second. Okay, perfect. I will double check. Okay, sorry. I have a question. This is what I want to talk about. For me, is I spoke with Megan Scott at RBBSC or whatever it's called, Richland Beam Blossom School Corporation. There we go. Megan Scott might have been our contact before. Okay. So she contacted me and said, so she's been in contact with somebody else at Luddy. And so I feel like wasn't this one of the reasons there was some confusion to begin with, like last year of who was in charge of this and that this was our project? Am I remembering that correctly? So Una,
Yeah.
so she's been reaching out to Megan
For what?
to set up girls coding camp.
This good back or UNA, CHAKER. So when is she reach out to you?
There was a history of, she sent me the emails. I mean, like, this was like a month or so ago that Megan reached out to me.
She reports it. So, let's see. Okay, so Yuna works with our Serve IT clinic, which is our nonprofit clinic in London. That's what she does. Yuna should have been a part of our initial, like our meeting a long time ago, but she never responded. But she doesn't do like outreach like that. However, now in her new alignment, she may be wanting to work with outside entities because now we have this new group called, it's called Alana. And that's what she reports to me. But Yuna should have talked to me because she knows I'm doing it.
Okay, well, so you can connect with her.
Yeah,
Okay, that's what I told Megan,
yeah.
because she was confused. And I was like, well, they're all meeting, blah, 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 blah. So, I was like, we'll get it ironed out. I'm not worried. Megan did ask, that and I figured you guys will know some more by next week and you guys have her contact information. School does get out in like a month, and she is hoping before that time to get a rough idea of what's going to happen. So that way they don't walk back into school in August and get, because she's like, I really don't respond to emails all that much over the summer, blah, 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 blah. So just to make sure, I was like, I will see what we can get you, even if it's just a rough draft of dates or I don't know, whatever you guys can whip together by then. So she has an idea of what to expect when she returns.
Yeah, we will shoot for that and do the best that we can, but now, it's not in our hands. So once we have this meeting, then we need to go through all the process of, presenting to the commission, getting that approved, then getting the budget approved, coming up with a budget, then getting the budget approved. So
Right.
it's gonna be a minute.
Well, yeah,
or-
I'm just saying, even like maybe the month, like even saying we're going to plan on this for September or roughly. Maybe, yeah.
If they approve it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't make them move faster than, they move.
Okay. Okay, does anybody else have anything to say about Girls Coding Camp? Beth is in, so I don't want to keep her waiting for too long. I know we kind of talked about the gender equity justice response. The one thing that I would like to say about that, in lieu of what's going on with the CJRC, is that doesn't mean we still don't have things we could be doing, because, I think one of our things that we had talked about was still making sure, one of our big priorities in my mind with that subcommittee is still making sure that things are being addressed in the current situation. I think, maybe it is putting that we should, this subcommittee should meet sometime to talk about what that means and how, I don't know if it's talking to, I don't even know how to get that information. If you go talk to the lieutenant commander or you talk, just to get an idea of,
The current situation of the jail for females. For those that
Yes.
identify.
yes, those identify, what services they're being offered. I think that would be, because I thought that was part of what we talked about,
Sure.
was
We could
making
just reach
sure.
Out to the sheriff.
Yeah.
And then the sheriff's office can put us in contact, like we could ask for a tour, we could ask for a list, we could ask for.
I also wonder if the report that the sheriff put together initially has information about that. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
That
I
might
don't
be a place to
recall.
start from. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will look into that and then reach out to those of us that are on that subcommittee to see if we want to meet to talk about something, or we can talk about it next month. Or I'll prepare to talk about it for next month. And then we can decide what we want to do from
Okay.
there. Okay,
If we need to contact the sheriff's office, though, I'll do that, because
well, feel free. I would just jump in
just
with
call
that.
on, okay.
Jump
just
in
do
with
it.
that.
Okay.
I don't really have new business, I think. That's why I didn't put anything under there.
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to, get some stuff technically on the record, but then also tell you about a event that's coming up on Monday. So in light of, what was that poor boy's name? Ralph. Yeah, Jarl, situation where he rang a doorbell and the homeowner opened fire, shot him twice, is what I will say, because that's what was reported. I was really in my feels about that, because I'm like, if we can't knock on each other's door, this is a child, this is ridiculous. And I was in my feels about it for a while, and then I decided, you know what, the thing that we can do here, because it didn't happen here close, is that we can, continue the conversations that we need to have around gun control, around racism, around violence. And so it was a nice segue into, well, I don't know why I said nice segue, because it's not a nice thing at all. But so the Monroe County Domestic Violence Coalition and Middleway House are putting on the annual, and I wasn't aware of this prior, but the annual Monroe County Domestic Violence Coalition Conference. And what it's not going to be as much of a conference as a conversation. I don't know if anyone's ever attended before. I don't know how well marketed it was, but this is going to be more of a conversation. And so we're going to have tables that will have discussions about specific things, and I'll hand this flyer around with the QR code. And the tables for conversation are harm reduction, disability justice, trans youth rights, reproductive rights and abortion access, anti-Asian violence, and early childhood youth empowerment. So it's going to be a facilitated conversation. Each table has a facilitated conversation. And it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning of a conversations that should continue to happen. And, nothing's going to be solved on Monday by any means, but we're going to start talking about what's possible.
Middleway House and whom?
And the Monroe County Domestic Violence Coalition. Thank you. It is from 9 to 11:30 at St. Mark's United Methodist Church. Nothing to do with the church. They just offer the space.
Monday, 9:30.
Yeah, the flyer's coming. 9:30 to 11.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry, 9 to
9.
11:30.
Okay, sorry, I have a hard time keeping up with.
Yeah.
All the things.
No, you do great. You know what? The QR codes might not work because I'm not a really good, I'm not good with the scissors. Who knew? I'm not good with scissors. Yes. Yeah, so don't use the QR code. There is a tiny URL on there.
Does anybody have any other thing in new business to add? Julie,
I
Commissioner Hardesty.
wanted to I wanted to share that I'm still kind of sifting through, but I did get a recording of the webinar that happened on March 23rd for houselessness and supportive housing options in Monroe County. That was had speakers from Beacon, Centerstone, and Heading Home of South Central Indiana. And it was I just listened through it once real quickly, but a couple of things that popped out to me when the questions that people were asking and what they were talking about in terms of the county and what we might be able to look at is they're trying to figure out ways to get landlords to accept vouchers for housing. They're having problems with that in the city and in the county, and they've tried different things. So I'm wondering if there's something useful that we can potentially do in that regard. And then there was a question that was asked that was very specific about elderly women aged 70 to 90 who experience houselessness and who are on their own, and what are the options for them? And there were options provided. The speakers all had different things and options to offer up, but it was just kind of like, it struck me that someone was like, this is a very specific situation that I'm trying to figure out clearly. And what do I do for this person or for these people that I know that, and it was a kind of a category of folks that are, I don't know, I thought maybe that would be something that we could look at as well. So, but there was also discussion in general about housing first options and how that can help with crime reduction. So potentially there's something there for the gender equity justice response subgroup as well. So anyway, I'm going to look at it more, but I'm also kind of interested in looking at Mary Morgan from Heading Home. I think that would be somebody who would be a really good speaker to come and talk with us, because they're kind of getting that Heading Home group is somewhat getting started. They've been working for a little bit, but they're really kind of about coordinating efforts between groups. And that was one of the things they talked about is the Heading Home of the houselessness webinar. Like all of these groups are like, we're making a lot of efforts to work together on these issues. So I thought that was
Oh my gosh, it's so late.
interesting.
What were the resources that
Sorry.
popped up for that demographic?
It was looking at
Sounds
Area
easy.
10, Area 10 aging,
Right.
and oh gosh, what else did they say? There was one other resource. I'm losing it in my head. What they listed, but there were a couple of places listed. And Beacon, I think, was another, Friends Place. They can go to Friends Place, and they said that, sometimes it's like the shelters are seen as being scary places to go if you're by yourself.
Yeah.
So, but there was one other resource that was focused on a community resource that's focused on aging that was also listed, and I can't remember what the name of it was, but it wasn't just Area 10. There was another place. So
Yeah, let's ask Mary Morgan and or Tatiana, and actually Tatiana might be somebody good to ask to recruit for this commission.
I really want to get to Beth because I know she's waiting, and technically our meeting goes till 7, so we have some time, but I did want to ask, and this is me, I guess, too, is reporting out in this meeting who's responsible for stuff next month. Like, I don't know who the speaker recruitment is, and I know it's on the list, but it is something that I want to remember. I don't know who is next month. But yeah, I want to report who's attending when. I just need to remember to add that to the agenda would be great.
Okay, so we need to know who's going to attend the meetings and who has the speaker.
Yep.
So according to the Sign Up Genius, the only one that was listed is in October. And I think that was yours, Maria.
For speaker,
Yes.
I thought other people had speakers.
I didn't see
I don't-
it in the Sign Up Genius when I looked, when you and I were texting back and forth.
Okay, well,
So, but,
I'm not gonna say I didn't get it. I might have missed.
it's okay. They're all coming back around. It looks like.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do you want me then to ask Mary Morgan to send somebody for next month? Or no?
I'm okay
It's
with,
fine with me.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
do that.
Can I just, this is just a point of comment. Next month, I won't be here.
Okay.
So, we'll need the agendas printed. the minutes, the draft minutes sent out. Well, I can send them out, but printed, and we'll need someone to take minutes next month.
I'm
So-
not a good minutes.
I can-
Julie,
I can-
I'm
Oh,
nominating
you can-
Julie.
yeah, okay, Julie.
Okay.
I can print the agendas and the minutes if we need to.
Just telling
I
you,
won't be here.
Commissioner
so
Williamson
we
will
have-
not
well,
be
we have
in
quorum.
here.
Well, we have quorum. I won't be here. I'll be out the country.
So hi,
Again,
Tiana and I will be out of the country.
yeah, we only need 4.
Yeah,
Perfect.
we all
So-
have four.
Cause I could try to find a proxy if I needed. to.
Yeah, no, we only need 4. We're fine.
You go out of the country.
Yep.
but You got it. I support.
I
you.
can't quit looking at her.
So Commissioner Hardesty is gonna be the acting secretary
Yes.
for May.
I.
So moved.
So moved.
Yes, putting it in, I'm writing it down.
Thank you.
So much for the room making us act right.
Okay. Upstairs, sorry, I believe there is someone in attendance. Can we promote Beth?
Well,
Because
wait a
she
minute.
is going to present.
While he's doing that, who's going to the county commission meeting?
Well, I'll send that out. I
Oh,
mean,
you will?
I'll
I
add it
thought
all
we were
and
gonna
send
talk
it out.
about it. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it has it all. I had looked at the 2, but not the 1, but I just want to remember to see it in writing. So to remind everybody, and I know we get reminders, but it would help me to see it, to
And if
make
you can put
sure.
it on the agenda when it comes out, like who's reporting out on that?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay, so this evening I've invited Beth White, she's the president and CEO of the Indiana Coalition to End Sexual Assault and Human Trafficking. I didn't meet Beth at the meeting or at the International Women's Day event, but I met other people from the coalition. So I reached out to them. So in light, like I said earlier, of the Sexual Assault Awareness Month, that I thought it might be interesting to see what the coalition is doing in Indiana. And Beth happily came and presented or offered to present via Zoom. Beth, I know we do have a lot to cover. We technically are here till 7, so we have quite a bit of time still. So I will turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Oh,
right, we're
great.
so-
It's nice to be promoted. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Great. Well, I can see you and that's a really nice room that you're in. Thank you. For having me this evening. It is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and I'm really pleased to hear you talking earlier in your meeting about your Middle Way House. And I know that you work with them. They are our partner in your community for sexual assault services, and they do a great job. So let me see, can I share my screen? Is that a thing that I've been allowed to do? It looks like I have. Hold on, stand by. I have a PowerPoint that I would like to share. And I think it's there. Do we see my PowerPoint,
Yes.
ladies? Great. Okay. There it is. Let's see. I don't know what this little person in the orange is. I'm gonna get rid of this person in the orange, maybe. I don't know. Can I get rid of this person? I guess I'm turning on subtitles. I don't mean to do that, but whatever. Okay, so here's my presentation. And I have a lot of slides, but I don't want you to panic because I will go through them rather quickly. If anybody has a question, it would help me if you could please raise your hand in the, or I guess you can't. Do you know how to do that when you're live and not on Zoom?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
yeah.
Okay. Because I have a tendency just to talk and I don't want to just do that if you have questions. So maybe I can count on somebody to stop me if there are questions.
okay.
Okay, great. So here's who we are. We are the statewide coalition. Every state in the country, including tribal governments and territories, have a coalition. The coalition movement started when the Violence Against Women Act was authorized in the early 90s, but coalitions have existed long before that. And here is our mission and vision. This version that I am now in charge of, I've been in charge for about a year, has been in existence since 2015. We are not a direct service provider. As I indicated, Middle Way House is your direct service provider in Monroe County. They also serve a number of other counties around your area. But these are the things that we do. SART stands for Sexual Assault Response Team, which is a multidisciplinary group convened by the prosecutor. And I can report to you that your prosecutor in Monroe County does convene a SART. They're required by statute to do it, but as I'm sure you ladies could figure out, it's a mixed bag around the state. We have about 55 active SARTs. I wish we had 92, but we don't. That's one of the things that we're working on. Rape crisis centers are these service providers that I talked about. As I said, Middle Way House is yours. There are currently 15 around the state, and one of our goals is service expansion. We're also working with human trafficking. That's what HT means. And the IPATH Task Force is a group of statewide officials who work on human trafficking. We do prevention, we do advocacy, and then we advocate through public policy arenas, including the legislature, on behalf of survivors and those who serve them. So just real quick, I'm a daughter of Monroe County, grew up in Bloomington. Mom and dad have lived in Bloomington for a long time. Their dad has passed away, and he was a professor at IU, but we are still property owners in Monroe County, and mom is still, will never leave Bloomington. We have tried for years to get her to move up here where her grandchildren are located, and she won't have it. So I don't know what it is about Bloomington, but it's holding her. So this is a little bit about me. I've been a lawyer a long time, and I'm really excited to be doing the work I'm doing now. So a couple of things about words and phrasing as we reflect on sexual violence. So sexual assault and rape are two words that we sometimes use interchangeably, but rape is only one kind of form of sexual assault. And sexual violence is an umbrella term that we really use in the movement to really reflect a lot more than just rape. Of course, child molesting, stalking is considered sexual violence. There are other versions too, but we use sexual violence as the overarching term. Victim and survivor are two words that I tend to use interchangeably, but survivor is a more trauma-informed word to use, because when a person has been the victim of sexual violence, we don't like to allow the term victim to define them. And so it is much more healing and empowering to say that folks are now survivors of sexual violence, and that they are reclaiming the power and control that's been taken from them. So I will use some of these terms, and I just wanted to clarify what I mean by those. Gender specificity is another thing that I personally struggle with. We often talk about sexual violence in terms of the victim she and the perpetrator he, but we know that that is, first of all, not inclusive language, and second of all, anyone is at risk for sexual violence. Men, women, folks who are transgender, non-binary. And so we have to be, and I really say this to myself, sensitive to what that means. I think I spelled socio incorrectly, so I just noticed that, sorry. The other thing about sexual violence is it really is unfortunately an equal opportunity offense. Anyone can be a perpetrator, and anyone can be a victim and then survivor. So those are just some other reminders for me and others about the language. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? Okay.
We're all shaking our heads.
Okay, great. So I'm going to jet through a couple of other things to get to the really what I consider to be the most interesting part, which is why people don't report. So rape is the most commonly discussed kind of sexual violence. Here is the statutory definition of rape. In 2022, we actually had a great success in our legislative environment in Indiana, where we expanded the definition. It used to be true that a person had to resist and that there had to be force or the threat of force. And what we've now included is this number 4, which is the person uses physical, verbal, or other means to indicate a lack of consent. So in other words, if someone is trying to put their clothes back on, or someone is physically trying to get up off the bed, or using gestures or other words to say, no, I don't want this. It used to be true that if they weren't injured or they weren't under the threat of force, that it wasn't rape. And as you can imagine, that was a terrible limiting definition. So we've added number 4 as of last year. It was a huge victory in a legislative environment that doesn't see a lot of progressive victories. So I wanted to call your attention to that. We talk a lot in the general populace about different kinds of rape. So things like stranger rape, which is something that people consider like a hierarchy, like that's real rape when you don't know the person. And I often sort of use this concept of the perfect victim. Grandma coming home from Bible study, she hasn't had anything to drink. She has got her shirt up to her neck. She is, not doing anything or behaving in any way that one might think she deserves to be raped. Someone jumps out of the bushes and she is a victim of sexual violence. Now that is a myth. the overarching majority of people who are the victim of sexual violence know their perpetrators, have some sort of relationship with their perpetrator, potentially a romantic relationship that was that predeceases the activity. So we use these terms to try to make a hierarchy. And what I really want to point out is how those hierarchies are both dangerous and not fair to victims and survivors. So date or acquaintance rape, we sometimes say, well, it was just date rape, not that big a deal, right? Not something that's as serious. Well, 85% or more that we know is really someone that the person knows. Obviously, multi-perpetrator rape, drug facilitated, is the way we get under the statute of mentally disabled or deficient and not able to consent. So think about a person who is passed out from drugs or alcohol, someone who is of limited mental capacity. We see so many sexual assaults perpetrated on people who are disabled. They are really endangered demographic. And so we see so often a person who doesn't fully understand what's happening to them, and they are exploited in that way. And rape is rape. Any gender, any socioeconomic group can be a victim. So the other thing I wanted to highlight, because I think it's just amazing that I think just about everyone in the room, and I can't really tell, although I will tell you that I'm old enough to have been alive in 1975, that every state had a marital exception. And if you were legally married to a person, they could rape you, they could do anything they wanted to you with impunity under the law. That's terrifying. And in 1977, at least Indiana limited that, but then in 1998, we completely did away with it. So I remember 1998, I was practicing law and doing some things. So it's somewhat terrifying to think about how recently we allowed people who are legally married in that circumstance to experience that without any penalty whatsoever. Other forms of sexual violence I think are important, and they're on the list here. We won't talk very much about any of them because every single one of them is an entire presentation that I'm happy to come back to all of you or any other sort of group that you're a part of to talk more about any of these. But these are some other very common forms, and sadly, of sexual violence. Human trafficking is something that falls under our purview as a coalition. I'm not going to talk tonight much about it because it's, again, a full presentation and lots to talk about. But there are two forms, essentially: labor trafficking, which is the theft of wages or other compensation. Most people think this occurs to folks who are undocumented as far as an immigrant status, but it is broader than that. Often people who are vulnerable for other reasons. Sex trafficking is just the concept of forced prostitution in a hierarchy where somebody else is economically benefiting. So those are the federal definitions of trafficking. And as I said, we're not going to spend much time at all here, the Indiana definitions of trafficking. Another thing that happened within the last 10 or so years that I consider somewhat progressive, and I'm a lot in the legislature, and to use the Indiana General Assembly and progressive in the same sentence feels a little strange to me, and maybe to some of you as well. But we did away with juvenile prostitution. So when I was a prosecutor early in the 90s, I actually prosecuted young people, mostly women, who were involved in the sex trade as prostitutes. And that is now recognized as something that someone under the age of 18 is not doing consensually, that they are not doing it voluntarily, that they are clearly being exploited. And so any young person under the age of 18 who is involved in the sex trade is now considered a victim and not a criminal. Now, I would like to live in a world where that is expanded to people over the age of 18. I think it is fair to say that more than just young people involved in the sex trade are being exploited. And there are lots of ways in which those people should be considered victims. They are most often criminalized. And so we are wishing for a world in which we are broadening that particular statutory construct, but we still live in Indiana. So I wouldn't stay at the edge of your seat about that happening anytime soon. Are there any questions about human trafficking before I move on?
No.
Okay. This is a lot, and obviously I'm happy. I think I already sent the presentation, I believe, to you. So, you'll have access to it, and anything else that you want to know, I'm happy to provide. We have a good website, but you've already included some national statistics in your materials, including your agenda. So I wanted to bring us back to Indiana. Indiana, the term we use, the stat we use is 1 in 3. 1 in 3 women will be the victims of sexual violence. That's horrific. And I don't have an explanation as to why it's worse in Indiana than a lot of other places, but it is. Girls in high school, we rank 2nd in the country for those who are raped while in high school. Again, I don't know why, and it's really horrific. So males are at risk as well as females. It's estimated, and this is a really hard number to show, you know, it's kind of like proving the negative, but 85% of sexual assaults are not reported to the authorities. Populations that are at high risk, I mentioned a minute ago, people who are disabled, college students, LGBTQ, young women, period. So these are folks who are in you know, vulnerable populations. So why don't people report? Let's talk about that, because it's really important. We hear a lot about a false narrative that women make this up, right? That people make this up, that there is this sense that during the Me Too movement, which now seems a little bit like history. I guess I'm getting old when you think about 3 or 4 years ago as history, but during the Me Too movement, there was a lot of talk about how women are making up these allegations because they want money or because it's fun to be in the public eye in the relation to this. And we just really want to politically hurt men. And so we make up these allegations. Well, that the statistics do not bear that out in any meaningful way at all. So the notion that 92 to 98% of reported rapes and sexual violence, they are true. And that the people who even come forward to report is a smaller percentage. So child abuse is another terrible crime, child sexual abuse, that is not reported, just in very, very small numbers of people, of children who are able to successfully report. So it's something to keep in mind when you hear the negative or you hear the narrative that people are making this up. So why don't people report? Well, this is important. And before we go through sort of this list I've come up with, do any of you have any thoughts about why people don't report sexual violence? To report to anyone, to the authorities, to their family members, to healthcare providers?
That was actually one of the questions that was forming in my head is like, how do people know who to report to? Like, how do you know who to say something to that would be reporting?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Are there any other thoughts about why someone wouldn't report?
I mean, it says it on the slide. It's the victim blaming. They're afraid that people will blame them. They were intoxicated or under the influence of something. They were where they shouldn't be, or, you know, something like that.
Right. The shame and blame.
I was going to say retaliation.
Yes. Oh, very real, especially when we're considering a hierarchical situation. Think of a boss at work, a coach, and you are a player, someone in a school or academic setting, a church, right? Think of a pastor and a congregant. I mean, these are real, and this is what happens. It is, you know, the only crime I can really think of where we just turn the question immediately on the victim. What were you doing? Where were you? How much were you drinking? What did you say? Where were you? Did you go with him? All of these questions that we immediately say. So this is why people don't report. Let me get to the next slide, which is also discussing this whole notion of many times the perpetrators are in a position of power. So the retaliation is someone that you brought up, very real. And also they are sometimes people in the community or in a context of a group, say a church, a school, an employment situation where a lot of people know them. And the notion that you wouldn't be believed because people just couldn't bring themselves to believe that your pastor, your coach, your whatever it is would behave in this way. And so it's a very tricky dynamic. So those are the reasons. Now, who to report to? It's a great question. And we have a lot of great materials at my office. We have a lot of pamphlets that talk about this issue. And our very most popular one is when a friend is raped, what to do, right? And so that's the context of this disclosure to a person you trust, a friend, a spouse, a sibling, a family member. And there are lots of things I want to say about what to do. But the first and most important thing is always believe, never blame, and allow the survivor to lead the journey. In other words, we hear a lot, and there's a lot of controversy in the world I live in, which is the world of service providers, about whether or not you should report to law enforcement. That the first thing you should do is call the police. That you have an obligation to other potential victims to report to the police. You have an obligation to your community to go through the criminal justice process, which will potentially involve public disclosure, going on the witness stand, doing a deposition, having to confront that person, having your family and everyone around your community know what happened and all the details. It's pretty terrifying. I've done a training where we do this exercise where we ask people to turn to the person sitting next to them and describe the last time they had sex. Every detail, where you were, what you were doing, who was it, how, whatever, everything. And then think about that being what you have to talk about on the witness stand as a victim of sexual assault. I mean, it is just horrific and terrifying. And of course, many, many people do not feel that they want to do it, or that they are emotionally equipped to do it, or that anything will come of it, right? And so I'm not really directly answering the question about who to report to, but I think what's most important is for a survivor to understand kind of what they need, right? Reporting to healthcare officials, like obviously if you have been raped, you need potentially morning after drugs, if that's a factor for you. Physically, you need STD testing, you need an HIV test, you need potential intervention medically for your injuries if there are injuries. You need referrals to counseling. You need all those things. And the good news about our sexual assault service providers, our rape crisis centers, of which Middle Way House is yours, is that our advocates that work there are fully equipped to help. So the first thing to tell a survivor, if you are interacting with them, is call the number. It's on our website. It's the RAINN hotline, RAINN, but it routes you to the place in your area where you can get help. In your area, it's Middle Way House. They're all around the country. We have rape crisis centers in every jurisdiction in the country. So they can route you based on where you live to the place where advocates are equipped to help you. And they're equipped to get you to the hospital or to what's called a SANE nurse, which is a sexual assault nurse examiner. They're equipped to help you as with a safety plan if you are not currently immediately safe. If it's a domestic violence situation, what can you do to keep yourself and or your children safe? What is your next step as far as healing? Do you want to interact with the criminal justice system? If you do, here is what's going to happen. If you don't, that's okay too. So this notion of reporting to law enforcement, very, very tricky. And I know you've heard this notion of, well, other people will get assaulted because you don't report. And so it's on you. And that is really not fair. That is really not fair. Are there questions or comments about any of that? It's really important.
No.
Okay. It's a tricky thing. So the next slide is a graphic that the numbers are not really as important as the concept, right? So if 100 people get raped, if 46 report to the police, which is, by the way, a very high number, not likely to be true at all in most jurisdictions, but let's say that they do. Fewer than half will result in an arrest, about less than a third. Of those arrests, and by that I mean that the prosecutor's office decides based on what they have as far as the charging information that they will attempt to arrest the suspect and make him or her a defendant. And then if they are a defendant, getting prosecuted is sort of the term for going to court, right? The notion of actually having someone seek a conviction, whether that be through a plea or through a trial, either a jury or a bench trial. And then a felony conviction, so it's not kind of pled down is the term that lawyers use. About 5 of those 100 people, and then maybe 3 will spend any time at all incarcerated. Maybe 3. So you see all of this and you say to yourself, why? would I do this? Why would I go through this? And it's a very hard question for anyone to answer. You know, the survivor needs to make that decision. Here is just a graphic that I think is sort of useful, but we're not going to go through it too much. This concept of the perfect victim, kind of the whole, they need to report right away. What we know about the neurobiology of trauma is, if any of you know anything about trauma and the way that the body responds to trauma, that there are lots of, it's the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses. And the freeze is one that's less understood, the notion that you just can't do anything. You can't fight back, you can't yell, you can't run, you can't do the things that sort of the usual person would say, oh, well, if she didn't do any of these things, then clearly he wasn't really being assaulted. And so this graphic sort of goes through that, example and discussion. What is normal behavior for a victim? Well, I intentionally have left this slide blank because there is no normal behavior. It is normal to report later, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. It is normal never to tell anyone at all. It is normal to go home, take a shower, go back to work, go back to school, get yourself just moving forward, one step, 1 foot in front of the other. It is normal to crawl in bed for 3 days and not answer your phone. All of these things are completely normal for a victim of sexual violence. So I intentionally leave this slide blank. This is a violence continuum in the wheel of oppression, and it's really gratifying to see in your minutes in particular that you reference the notion of oppression as a concept in society that leads to this kind of behavior, right? So oppression is kind of the overarching problem, and we've got all kinds of ways in which oppression presents itself. And these things start with normalizing violence, jokes, treating women less than, media depictions, the sexualization of women just writ large, and that's a whole day-long conversation. And it sort of goes from there, right? And all of these things, right, are a part of the continuum, and there's no real start or end. It's a broader conversation about how we objectify people who are the other, LGBTQ, disabled, undocumented folks who are vulnerable and not in a position to complain or come forward or go to the police, because why would you go to the police if you're undocumented? All of those things lead to the victimization of people and sexual violence. So what do you do? And these are the last couple slides I have. So again, start by believing, always believe the victim, never blame a victim, ever. It is the fault of the perpetrator. I have people, including, by the way, my in-laws, who love to say, well, if she just wasn't drunk, or she wasn't walking this way, or she wasn't wearing that clothing. There is never, ever a justification for sexual violence, ever. It is about power and control. It is not about sex. It's not about desire. It's not about he or she was somebody I really was desiring. No, it is about power and control and violence. And a survivor has to reclaim that power and control that's been lost by deciding what happens to them. And it is never, ever okay to say these are the things you should do, that you should forgive this person, that you should try to forget, that you should consider it was your fault, that you should report to the police. None of those things are ever okay. The survivor has to understand the journey. And then we need to change the culture of sexual violence. There are lots of resources, middle ways in your community. Obviously, these are some specific resources in Indiana for folks who are Spanish speaking. So there's a Latino Coalition. This is the RAIN hotline. It's answered 24/7. If you call it, they will route you to a provider in your area who can help you. And that's really important because you want to be somewhere close. And then here are some other resources if you're interested in learning more. And there is my email, and I'm very available. And so is my organization, and our website has some really great additional resources. So let's see, I can't see my calendar. I'm going to stop sharing. There we are. Okay, who has questions for me?
I do. Anybody
Please.
else? So what do you, I mean, obviously education is a big component of of the coalition. What are the other kind of services or activities do you guys do?
Yeah, so we engage directly with the service providers. We have 15 rape crisis centers, but lots more service providers who don't provide a full complement of the Department of Justice required services. So to be a rape crisis center, you have to have 24-hour response, including hospital response, which is a staffing nightmare for these folks, right? So around the state, we have lots of places who are trying to staff up in order to do that. So we work with them on their service standards. We support them. We advocate for more money, which this year we were successful in the state budget and getting a little bit more. Indiana is one of the few states that doesn't fund in any meaningful way our service providers. No surprise there, right? So we advocate for that. We have curriculum for prevention, and we try really hard to deploy that curriculum. You know, there are only 9 of us on staff, and it's really hard statewide, but we try to share everything that we have, and then we try to raise awareness. You know, we have a great partnership with our college campuses and our Title IX folks around the state. Is, I think most of you probably know, Title IX is much more than, you know, women's sports equity, which we're proud of and happy about. And our own Birch Bayh was the author of Title IX. Some of you may know that. So Indiana is, you know, is responsible in some ways for Title IX, and we're very, you know, gratified that that was true. But Title IX also requires every college and university to investigate, respond to, and deal with sexual violence, harassment, stalking, all of these things. And by the way, most of them don't do a very good job. So I'm just going to say that out loud. If I were in charge of the world, which I'm clearly not, I would do away with that. We have law enforcement officers all around the state who are equipped in a trauma-informed way to investigate these matters. And what happens on the college campuses, and I'm not commenting about IU. If anyone in the room works at IU, and I'm a proud IU graduate, and I love IU, it's a great institution, but they are not equipped to handle these investigations, especially if they're serious conduct. Stalking, maybe harassment, you know, in the workplace context is a little bit different, right? And I mean, I teach at IUPUI, so I have to take this like anti-harassment thing. There's like a webinar or whatever, and you know, it's a thing. But when people are being raped on college campuses, and by the way, they are in large numbers, the people who work in the Title IX office are not the people who should be interviewing the perpetrator and interviewing the victim and putting a criminal case together. Because what happens is they're not equipped to do that. And then after a period of time, the prosecutor might get involved and say, this investigation has not been handled properly. And what the university wants to do is figure out the status of those people. Do they expel the student? Do they help the victim find a new class schedule, move out of the dorm? Like, they're okay. But what's really important here is that we've had a crime occur on the college campus. And that is a thing that we've got people whose job it is in the state of Indiana to handle. And the Title IX folks in a lot of cases just aren't handling it in a way that's appropriate and proper. So we work closely with them, and we try to train them, and we have a consortium of those folks who get together. They're also required to do prevention and awareness, by the way. And so lots of the universities do good work there in consultation and cooperation with their Panhellenic councils and with other groups on campus. We've been doing a great prevention curriculum focused at men and boys with the IUPUI athletic department. We're really proud of it, and I'm super anxious to get it expanded. It talks about toxic masculinity, talks about relationship dynamic, and you know, how men can be the solution and not the problem. And it's a super great curriculum. And we started with athletes because we just really feel like that's a thing in the culture of our, not just our campuses, but just society writ large. That's a long answer to your short question, but those are some of the other things that we do.
No, so I mean, no, that's great. And I think my follow-up, or just my clarification, is that you do a lot of lobbying too,
Yes.
right? And that's
Yes.
your lobbying educationally for, you know,
Right.
Amendments to laws or whatever. Okay.
Yes, I had a very active session, and I was over there with, you know, we partnered with the Prosecuting Attorneys Council, the Public Defenders Council right there. ICADV, which is the Domestic Violence Coalition, is my sister coalition, and they're there as well. Laura Berry is their leader, and you know, we work together closely. So that's a big piece of what we do, but you know, it's a tough environment to get progressive. And that's why the victory in the rape definition last year was so significant, because it's just something that we don't see happen in Indiana very often. We were very active in the special session on reproductive rights. It's a sad day. You know, when you interact with legislators and you talk about young victims of sexual assault who don't know what it means to be pregnant, and we talk about a 10-week or a 6-week, or what in the world, right? And it's just so discouraging, right? I mean, I understand that abortion is it's a hot button topic. I get it. And I understand that people feel strongly about it. But I don't understand why victims of rape and incest cannot access a full complement of healthcare, including reproductive care, to help them. I do not understand how cruel it is to look at a survivor of sexual violence and say, you got pregnant, that's on you. And what the CDC is, almost fortuitous timing, in June, when the Dobbs decision came down, the CDC issued their most recent report on sexual violence and indicated, as among other things, lots of other stats, 1 in 7 women in the United States who are raped get pregnant. 1 in 7. So if you believe the narrative that the hormones or the trauma or whatever keeps that from happening, that is a false narrative. 1 in 7. And the numbers are a lot higher for incest, because of course what we know about incest is it is over time, consistent. Young women are at risk, and most of them don't even understand their menstrual cycles or what that means, or what it feels like to be pregnant, or what's happening to them. And if it's in the context of a family, they aren't safe and they can't disclose, and they go to school and someone notices. My sister is a school nurse. I mean, and sadly, she would tell me the story, right? And the school nurse notices, and this child is 4 months pregnant. And no place in the law can she access a complement of services to help her. No place. And she's 12 or 13. And that is it.
For all of that, I know we're pretty short on time, but something that I do want to bring to light that I've personally been thinking about for a while, after I was part of a webinar talking about supply and demand, right? So if there's not the demand, for human trafficking, sex trafficking. So I think they were out of different different states, definitely not Indiana. So does Indiana have anything going on as far as legislation or anything about kind of the demand side?
Well, we do have a lot of activity in our what's called our IPATH task force, which stands for the Indiana Protection for Abused and Trafficked Humans, which is kind of a tortured acronym, but it's IPATH. And the IPATH task force actually has a demand working group, which is made up of people, some law enforcement, but others too, to talk about the demand side issue, talk about how we really do focus on people who are purchasing the sex trade and the trafficking, and they're doing good work. The thing about trafficking that's really, really hard, and our legislative environment, frankly, is not the solution. The solution is equipping law enforcement with the tools and the training that they need, because these are cases where the victims will not come forward, because many of them don't identify as victims, right? If you think about a 16, 17-year-old, he's my boyfriend and he loves me and no one else gives me a place to live or food to eat, but he does. And this is what he asks me to do, right? And I'm not a victim, right? This is our relationship, if you want to even say that, if you could even articulate that. But we know that's trafficking, right? We know that is what is happening in that circumstance. And alcohol, substance abuse, alcohol, other kinds of vulnerabilities come into play. And so prosecuting these cases is really hard. And so equipping law enforcement with the tools to do that. We don't need new law. We need new enforcement. We need more resources for enforcement. We need more training. We need a place for folks to go. We often get calls in the middle of the night from law enforcement around the state. I'm here. I've got a survivor. She has no place to go. She has kids. Her trafficker lives in her home. What can we do? And so this is really hard, and there aren't a lot of good options, depending on where that survivor that victim is living. It's a really hard problem. And then we have some good service providers who help people get out of that life, but that's a long journey. If you envision a 16, 17-year-old who has been kind of abused like this for years and years and years, that's a complex trauma that has to be undone, and it's really hard. But new law is not the key. Awareness, training, tools.
Thank you.
So sure, I know we're out of time, and I could really, as you can probably see, I could talk all day, which I won't do. Because it's nice outside in Indianapolis. I don't know if it's nice outside there. So let's have some daylight to go back outside. And
I just wanted to say thank you so much. What an informative. Yeah, I feel like I have a pretty good awareness of the topic, and you blew my mind with a couple of those things. So I really appreciate that. Also, would it be possible for you to share that?
I have it.
You have it?
Yeah.
Okay, I was just gonna say, because I didn't take notes because I was just listening
No.
and wanted, so thank you so much.
of course, and all my contact information, including our website, is on the presentation. So please reach out if there's anything ever we could do to help you or to help equip others with the information. That's what we're here for.
Does
It's nice to
anybody
see
else?
all of you. I'm logging off.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Well, that was uplifting. Yeah. Well, that was interesting. I'm glad I invited her. I hope you guys appreciated asking her to come. We have no public comment that I know of. So does anybody else have anything they'd like to say before we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second? Oh, do I
Aye.
have a second?
Oh.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
I.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you upstairs.